All right. Well, with that, everybody got to hear the voice of Ryan Reed. So, Ryan, welcome back. We always appreciate you taking the time, and you always got great information. I always learn stuff from you. We had a conversation last week about this, about seller expectations and managing seller expectations. And so I threw it on you. I kind of put it into two groups. It's having that conversation with your seller at listing appointment and before we go live. And then we all have those sellers who call us all the time and are getting impatient because they don't, because their house is still on the market. So let's jump into before the listing goes live. Like, what are the things and how are you managing sellers' expectations?
Yeah, see, for us, one of the biggest, most important thing is right from the beginning, managing the expectation, right? So if you have a listing right now and it's active and it's got a lot of days on market, it's hard to go back to your client and say, oh, by the way, based on the data, your house could be on the market anywhere from 70 to 90 days, right? Like that's harder. So that's why it starts with the listing appointment. What that does for us and for me is it sets me apart first off because I'm coming in with that data. So before I go to the listing appointment, we're running that data on closed comps and we saw how long they sat on the market. We're telling them how much they listed for and then how much they sold for, right? So that we know a percentage of potential drop in it. And you can also, with the same report, you can also add what concessions were given. And so that managing expectations is coming to your appointment with your clients with the correct data for their specific neighborhood. And we were talking earlier when we look at the Maricopa County, then go down to a city, you can literally pull this data for your specific neighborhood. When you're drawing the search parameters, you can have a list report that's going to have all the different things that are important to, first off, the comping, but also to being able to give the data that the client needs to make the best decision. For us, we've had to walk away from a few listings because we couldn't help the client manage what they wanted to get for the home and what the reality of what the market was yielding at that time. And that is, for us, I'd rather walk away from that than go through a whole entire transaction, not manage the expectations well, because we started them off wrong.
But Ryan, I met with Todd, and Todd came in and said that he could list my house and sell my house for $50,000 more than what you're telling me my house should sell for.
Yeah, Mike, I get that. I get that statement all the time. It sounds like we're gonna do some role play here, Mike. I totally understand that. The difference between Todd and I is right from the beginning. I want to make sure that you have the most accurate data. I know what outlier property he's talking about, and that one honestly had way more upgrades: brand new kitchen, new flooring, brand new pool, which made it much, worth much more than yours. But when I looked at these other ones, which we can look on my computer here, and I'll show you these other properties I believe are very comparable to yours, you'll see that I'm not just here to buy your listing, because Todd's probably going to ask you to sign 6 months, 8 months to a year, knowing you're going to want to sell it at some point, and you're probably going to drop down that price. I'd rather start there so that we have the best chance to get you the most amount of money right in the beginning.
When you are on the buy side and you're negotiating, how important is price reductions to you? Because that's also what I'm trying to explain to our sellers is I think the more price reductions you have, the more desperate you
Totally.
appear. And so if we go to market immediately way overpriced, we're going to be reducing. And even if you do coming soon, which I like to do coming soon still shows that price reduction.
Yep. Yeah. So for us with the buyers, that's definitely something we look at. I can look how often they change the price. That was like a model a few years ago that we did to keep it popping back up in people's emails because, we wanted other buyers to see this house and get as many offers as possible. So you would do those small price reductions so it keeps on popping up in the algorithm. Because anytime there's a change, sites go and market that. They're like, oh, look at the price change, different things that happen. So for us, I help my client understand, like, it's really important that we come out in this closer range to what we've seen closed comps sell for, because that's what we're ultimately looking at. The ones that are still on the market are still on the market. And these other ones went under contract and closed at these other lower prices, which tells us those other homes that are priced higher aren't necessarily getting that. We also come with the data of showing them, has there been depreciation in that neighborhood? Have we seen prices, lower, and how much so? And if we look at it and we think that that city's having a decline, then we're going to also want to try to get ahead of that, depending on how motivated the seller ultimately is. So having that conversation and helping them understand the actual numbers and what it means is really key to the management of the expectation of
Right.
how it's going to happen.
I think a good thing too is also to, take a take a look at planning and zoning and see what's happening around, because a lot of times they won't tell you they know something's changed, and yet even though legally they're supposed to. And so sometimes you could have like a trust land sale, or you could have, a road behind you, or you could have, other things that the road's going to be widened, or all these different types of things. And once that knowledge is out there, it's going to stigmatize the property anyway. So would you rather be ahead of that before more people know about it, or would you prefer to be the last one to have to give up the most amount of money to get the sale happening?
Yeah, buyer and seller. I mean, agent. I always tell my clients, "Hey, go drive around. You see any cleared off deserts with no trees on them? Something's getting built there." And how does everybody get to that? So I'll tell my buyers, drive the neighborhood before we write this offer. Go drive it, check it out, make sure that all the area, the roads.
I tell them to do it too during rush hour too.
Yeah.
If you got to commute downtown,
I'll also tell them I'll go if their property, the lot disposition's not great, meaning it backs up to maybe a more major road. I tell them, hey, come back between 5 and 6 o'clock and see how busy this road is, because if you're out back enjoying and now all of a sudden you just hear cars and that's going to be an issue to you, that's something you want to consider. And so one of the things that we try to help our sellers understand is the psychology of what buyers have right now, which is options. And so if they can go and buy the same house or a house very similar to it that doesn't have as much work that needs to be done to it, they're going to go with that house that's the same price. So we have to be even strategic about, I tell my sellers, hey, listen, I know this is your baby and you love this house and you've done a lot of work to it and you've owned it for a long time. But my job is in the most gentle way to tell you that your baby might be a little bit ugly compared to other babies in the neighborhood. And they usually get a chuckle out of them. But it's the point of saying, like, you want me to tell you the truth, because if not, you're going to sit on the market. And the numbers actually show the higher you start the price over what the market is yielding, the further you end up going to be able to sell it.
you could also use my same analogy of the medical profession. Do you want to go, if something's wrong with you, do you want to go to your doctor and have them lie to you?
Yeah.
Or do you want them to tell the truth? And then it's generally, or are you the one that's lying to them? I love that one. How many cocktails do you have? Well, that doesn't do any good. But I really want to hover on the concessions. I think that this is critical, because we are not seeing too many transactions right now that aren't offering some sort of seller concessions. And I am of the camp of, I don't want that to be a surprise to my seller when we start getting an offer in here and all of a sudden they're asking for 2% or 3% in seller concessions. I'm trying to have that discussion up front, that chances are we're probably going to get an offer that's asking for seller concessions. But then I can go back to your earlier point, then I can go back into MLS and take a look at that neighborhood and see, because I had one, it was East Valley, and it was a very unique neighborhood. And we went in and I was pulling comps because we were getting ready to make an offer, and there were 7 legitimate comps, but I was amazed that only 2 of them offered seller concessions, and almost every single one of those listings sold within 20 days. So this is just which is not normal for right now of what we're seeing. So that was a discussion I had to have with my buyer, who wanted the world. I mean, this neighborhood's not performing like that.
Yeah. So that's definitely important. We're not seeing a lot of neighborhoods like that, where I feel like the last 5 listing appointments I've been on, every one of them had at least, let's say if I found 5 comps, there was at least 3 or 4 that offered some sort of concession, right? Meaning had to do some sort of concession. And what I found on the other 2 was it was that the buyer didn't need the concession, but you saw it in the price reduction. Exactly. So it's like almost an exact correlation of that. So some sort of concession, whether it was a lower price or a concession being offered, or both, were necessary to make the deals happen. And so it's just important, if you're not having that conversation with your clients and making sure that this is what their needs are right now, that this net or this potential net is what they can move forward and do whatever it is next, whether it's buy another house or move out of state, you're you're not serving your client well. And you're going to have frustrated clients that at 6, months or whatever your listing agreement was signed for, they're going to go and hire somebody like me or Mike.
Yeah, in the end, the seller needs what they need to go to the next domino or move out of state or whatever it is.
And you
got to
ask the questions to know that.
And you have to that lead to that exactly, because a lot of times you can ask somebody something and they're not going to tell you really what you want to hear. But if you put them in a position to achieve what you'd like to have them believe all by themselves, then they give it up. It kind of comes free. So that's why we've always said, pull the estimated settlement sheet, from the lender or from escrow, or if you're a buyer's agent, pull an estimated settlement sheet, because otherwise, I don't know, Mike. I mean, I'm not in the trench like you guys right this particular moment. However, my wife is. And when she and I have conversations, I'm like, well, how are you going to know how to package and write that offer if you don't know what your buyer needs? If the buyer, they may have enough cash and they just look at you and say, Mike, you're a strong negotiator. Make it happen for me, baby. Get me as best a deal as you can possibly get. Or they could come to the and that might be retail with no discounts. But the next thing is, but maybe they need to have X% of a financial assistance coming from the seller to be able to make that happen.
You have to know
if
that.
you don't know that, I don't know why you're driving people around. And that's really got to be part of that initial conversation, in my personal opinion. But sometimes you have to keep people excited. So you got to take them out for an afternoon, show them 5 houses, just so they're willing to go home that night and go find all their documents.
So in addition to concessions, I know there's two trains of thoughts on this. So I was just curious on how you handle it. When you are sitting down for a listing presentation and you're putting together the estimated settlement sheet, are you estimating on what that seller might be paying for a buyer broker fee, or are you just leaving that empty and just say, hey, it's going to be negotiable?
So I write it out with, great question, Mike. So how I do it with the net sheet from my title company, I have an app and it's phenomenal. And I basically say, okay, if the max, let's say, is this percentage, right? Let's call it 3%. And let's pretend like mine's 3%. And let's pretend like they asked for 3%. Now you're talking 9% in total potential takeaway. So I want to go to a very extreme number, letting them know, obviously, all of it is negotiable, but this is what we could see on as an offer. So understanding that this is the worst case scenario potentially, and also letting them know, hey, we've done X amount of listings this year so far, and this is what we're seeing. I'm seeing on average a 2 to 3% in concession amount based on the price range, especially. But like, this is what I'm seeing. So helping them understand that this is what we're seeing, to expect that. Does that number still make sense? That's one of the questions. So I usually do, when I give them a list price range, I'll say I'll run a net sheet at the top and I'll run a net sheet at the bottom. And do these numbers still make sense? So that also is now going to tell me where do they need to be for what they want to do next. And so obviously we're usually having that conversation because I'd love to help represent them as a buyer, but I'm having that conversation, finding out what they need. And sometimes we're saying, hey, right now is probably not going to be the best for you to sell it, because if at the top that net amount that you're taking home isn't enough, then we need to wait until the market goes up some. And then that allows me now to, every few months be running comps for them, having conversations with them. And I've done that. And I have a few clients that are like, yep, now the numbers make sense. Can we go ahead and move forward?
Yeah, you got to be careful of that maintaining that collaborative relationship with the client, because what you don't want is that consumer saying, well, gee, Ryan, I just want you to get me the most for my house I can possibly get. It's your job.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where I'm headed and what I need. It's like, that discussion's over.
I love this line. I don't think I've heard it before, but price is a strategy, not a reflection of value.
Yeah.
I love that.
So you got to think about this. When somebody lists their house, especially if they're unsure that they're gonna be able to get what they want, they're gonna be telling their neighbors. That sign goes up in that front yard, they're gonna be telling their neighbors are gonna see it online, and they're gonna be like, oh wow, they've listed it for $600,000. And to them, it's almost like bragging, right? So you got to remember, you're dealing with your seller's ego at the same time, because either people or neighbors are gonna come over and be like, I can't believe you listed it for that much. It's worth way more than that. But they have no knowledge of real estate, their neighbor, right? But you got to remember, they're out having those conversations in front of their house that you're not. And so that's why I say that. It's a strategy. It's not a reflection of value. At the end of the day, what is ultimately the value of a home is what somebody's able and willing to pay. It's not what your neighbor thinks or even what you think.
All right. Well, and I say it's not only your home is worth what someone is willing to pay, but it's also worth what your lender is willing to lend on based
Mm-hmm.
on what the appraiser is going to appraise it at. That's
100%.
the number that we get to. All right. So let's talk about active listings. I know a lot of agents, Ryan, that and it just I don't like making my Monday afternoon calls when a house has been sitting and I know my seller's getting impatient and I know that I've done everything right. I don't enjoy those calls, but I do them and I have to do them. And you owe that to your sellers. And I'm amazed on a lot of agents that just, no one likes to deliver bad news, but sometimes you got to deliver bad news, and sometimes no news you got to deliver. And I'm a firm believer that you need to stay in contact with your sellers on a weekly basis, especially if their home is not moving.
100%. Yeah, so I totally agree with you. So not every agent can afford it. We have a system that gives our clients an update every Friday on all of the views they're getting online on different sources, what we've done for ads that we've run for them, and what's that gotten us, how many calls have we received about the property, how many inquiries on our website from the sign out front have we received about their property, and ultimately how many showings, especially if it's a vacant home that nobody's living in, how many they've received. And that allows us now to have some talking points with our clients. We're delivering that data. And yeah, I mean, I've had listing appointments on, expired listings, and I tell them that one thing and they're like, our agent didn't talk to us for 6 months.
Yeah.
And it was just like, well, that's why you called me. I'm sorry that I wasn't your first call.
Could a seller at that point just go to that agent's broker and say, my agent is not doing their job and I want out? I mean,
Yeah. Well, remember that there's a lot of different layers to that question. First of all, the contract says it's irrevocable. So in other words, the seller doesn't have the right to, they've instructed you to do a particular job within a period of time, and they can't do anything that interferes with you being able to do your job without them owing you the entire amount of compensation in that document anyway. So that's the first part. The second part is it's never any good for a broker to hang on to a listing that the seller doesn't like the company or the individual. That's just going to continually basically make it so that you will never do business in that particular community again. The word of mouth. The other piece of that is, can they? Yes. The biggest issue here is we didn't take the time to explain to the seller exactly what all the things that we're doing and behind the scenes potentially. We also, so there's no value proposition. We didn't maintain that continuous communication. So if I was maintaining continuous communication and the seller calls my broker because I told them my documents are revocable or they're just smart enough to have read it, there's still a likelihood that the broker is going to recommend to you that you have another conversation with the seller, try to rectify it. And if you can't, the broker might recommend, even though there's no broker out there that wants you to walk away from a deal, but they might recommend that you walk away.
I love silence equals stress. I have one rule with my escrow officer and my lender especially is do not let somebody go to bed not knowing what's going on.
Yep.
And Justin I've never had that issue with Justin. I've never had anyone complain about that. He'll run into that fire, while everybody's running out. But I had one years ago. It was like when I was buying a home, if things started going awry, I'd call 10 times a day, and it would be days before I'd hear back. And I can't tell you the amount of stress that caused me at night, and where I was so seething mad that I couldn't sleep. And I'm like, I don't ever want one of my clients experiencing that. And then if I'm silent, that's what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, your title and your lending team matter, like, to the success and your continued success in this business. If they're not going out and, like you said, running into the fire, having the communication. I appreciate my title company say, hey, we haven't got an answer yet from this, but I know we talked this morning. I just wanted you to know that I'm still waiting on hearing back from XYZ person. As soon as I hear back, I will absolutely be informing you. I just didn't want you to think we're not focusing on this. We're not pushing hard on this, whatever it is. And that's something just like we've done too, is we've said, and when we've picked these title companies we try to work with, that's why, right? They're willing to do that. They're willing to have the tough conversations. This is why you're in this business, right? Like, is to be able to help your client, communicate your client. You got to make sure you got a team around you as well, because that silence will make them think illy of you. They're not going to probably see that title company ever again, or potentially that lender. Hopefully that lender built a relationship with them. But at the end of the day, they're going to see you again. And you're going to set the tone for what future transactions look like, and especially if you want to have more of them.
It's a simple email follow-up, and sometimes they can be automated, but it's, once a week you're going to pull some kind of comps in the neighborhood just to see what's going on. And it may come back and say nothing's happened. So what do you not call your client and say nothing happened? No, you do. You reach out. Maybe it's just an email, but it's an opportunity to have another conversation that could lead anywhere. It could lead to them explaining their frustrations. It could lead to them telling you about a referral that they just talked to.
I was going to say that.
Oh my gosh, there's so many things that you could trigger based upon that phone call. And if they're not happy with you, I'd rather have that phone call and know it today than next week or the week after.
In the last year and a half, I've probably picked up 4 or 5 listings after they expired because I listed somebody else's house. They have a great experience with communication, managing expectations, giving them data, actually giving them numbers, not just my opinion. And I picked up listings because they expired. We'll take 45 days off. We make a strategy on how we're going to do it. I've tell them the truth on, they just listed their house too high. Whoever, they had before, you told them the number they wanted to hear, not what the market was actually yielding. And I've picked up listings because of that.
Yeah.
And we successfully sell them as well.
All right, I like this. So focus on activity, not just results. You know how to spell the word just. So I still don't know what juts is. But I like that because it is. I think this is of really transitioning their mindset. Every seller starts with, what are the results? I want the results. And the activity, I think going into the activity and understanding buyer behavior and things like that really, it lets them see the full picture.
Yeah. And I think when you have that conversation with your seller about what we're looking for, right? So we'll start off this price, the price that they decide in the range you give them. And you'll say, we're going to start here. But if we don't see showings or offers in the first 2 weeks, we're going to look at our strategy again. We're going to reevaluate, are we meeting your goals of selling this home at the price or the range in which you need to sell it for? And what do we need to do to now get more people there, right? So there's some of those things that we do. So, but that's on the front end. This is like, and then it's followed up with an email so they know, hey, it was a great meeting today. I sent you over the paperwork to sign. Here's our strategy. And I put it in writing. Like, here's what I'm committing. Here's my guarantee. Here's our strategy. And then they're like, oh yeah, okay, sounds good. I want to get that affirmative in the email. If I think that the person might be a little more difficult, in the ER, we'll say that we're going to drop it by X percentage or X amount on X date in the listing agreement, right? So I get that first try. We can try it your way. Okay, it didn't work. Let's go back to my way.
I love that. Mike, it reminds me of way back when you and I worked together in the very beginning. And we were doing training classes and we were teaching agents about the marketplace. And the visibility factor, I have not thought of this in, I don't know, a year or two. And here's what it is. Where is your biggest source of market and when? And in essence, to your point, Ryan, when people can't find what they're looking for, they don't buy. But what do? They're on Zillow. They've got automatic research. They've got all these things that are going to pop into their database. They've used your website. They're waiting for, something to show up on the marketplace that's new. Well, that property is not just marketed to the average number of buyers in a marketplace when you first list it. It's marketed to every single buyer that has ever been waiting for a property to come in that fits a particular price range, and to the point of the reduction of 1%. But not so much that as just when you first launch that property, you're speaking to every potential buyer that's looking for something that has not found what they're looking for. You're never going to have a better market. After you've exposed that and it becomes, I say that's the first market. After that, I think a property is stale, period. If you've missed that first window, it's stale. And so what happens is now who's looking at your home? Just those few new people who are now coming into the marketplace that might need those things. So your best shot is that very first shot.
We say that our job, one of our major jobs, is to help you test the market. Is somebody looking for this home at this specific price range right now? because they're getting those. Zillow, Realtor.com, all the big sites are emailing every person that has searched a home like this one because they're going to market it to them, right? And
Including a realtor.
yeah.
You should be getting them also.
Yep.
What do you? Okay, time to do my my Facebook rant. Okay, this is why I haven't been on these Facebook groups in so long. Okay, yes. Sometimes if you call me on my listing, sometimes I just can't answer the phone. Sometimes I'm at the movie. Sometimes, and I'm just tired of agents never answer their phones. Okay, we can't always answer our phones. And it's the same thing that they rant is that agents aren't leaving feedback
Oh, yeah.
after the showing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I'm okay with that. Like, it drives me nuts. I'm walking out of a showing and a line is already texting me for feedback. I'm like, bro, I need some time to go show the other 4 listings. But we're very religious regardless, because I don't think the feedback forms matter. It's calling up every agent that shows your home and having that conversation, because most agents will tell you, yes, it is price, or yes, it is that. Because every time I do the line thing, I always put, it's above market price, just in case my client changes their mind and wants to make an offer on it.
The industry is actually looking at that right now, and they're saying, are you actually, should the listing agent be looking at that data for that exact reason? And are you as a buyer's agent actually potentially damaging your fiduciary duty to your client? Should that circle back and you end up wanting to look at that home, and the listing agent looks at it and says, you said, oh, this is absolutely beautiful, they're just going to go look at a couple more.
Yeah.
It's like, so everybody's writing that,
I say,
you're going to get what you expect.
call the agent.
If an agent calls me, I will absolutely give them feedback on their listing. So we call every agent that goes, either us or we ask our assistant to just call and say, hey, do you have any feedback that we could share with the seller? And then it's just that. It's nothing more than that. She documents it. And then on Friday, when they get our system email that we put all this data in, they also get that feedback then.
Yeah. All right, Ryan, good stuff as usual. Tell us about your team.
Yeah.
With the 1 minute we have left, so we
that,
have
that clock's 2 minutes off.
Okay, is that for you, Mike? Because
No, it's because Nick buys cheap clocks.
Oh, got it. Okay. So yes, Valley Home Group. We are a smaller team out of the North Phoenix office. We love to train agents on using data for having their listing presentations, their buyer consultations, helping them manage and understand those expectations through and through, so that their clients have a great experience with that agent. And so we teach that. We have agents that have joined the team that have, let's say they do 8 to 10 transactions a year, and with our systems they're able to increase their transactions because we're taking all of the hard, busy work that you would normally do in a transaction, and we're either outsourcing it or making it to where they can go do what they do best, which is talk to the client, go out and build rapport with new clients and get the business that only they can go out and get. And so we have quite a few systems that help them be way more efficient and ultimately do more transactions. So
Are you looking to hire?
yeah, you want to join?
I would love to.
All right.
Yeah, we'll talk to him about coming in $50,000 above market price, list price.
Got to be more than that. Check out that original list price to sell price retention. That'll make you laugh.
All right. Well, there's Ryan's information. Obviously, this is the West USA number, but you can
Maybe
ask
next
for
time
Ryan.
you ask me on, we'll get that fixed. I think I joked about that last time.
Yeah,
You got my right email. So
I think
that's
you
good.
did. Yeah.
Baby steps.
Well, I personally thank you, and I couldn't.
Thank you, Ryan.
I mean, if I'm an agent out there and I want to increase my business, I can't think of a better team to join than your team. So I just throw that out there. If you are out there and you're really wanting to take your business serious, I mean, one thing, if you're not looking to take your business serious and you don't like accountability, I'm just going to say,
Yeah,
don't call Ryan. I know him way too well.
One last piece, though. Ryan, of course, we respect you and are thankful for the time that you take away from your business to be here to help and share with everybody else. So thank you for doing that. But I want to make sure everybody understands every office, there's a superstar at West USA in one of your offices. And my recommendation is I highly recommend, if you think that a team or that additional efficiencies and strategies, that isn't like going to work necessarily 8 to 5, but yet can fit into what your day schedule is. You just have to be honest with the team leader about what your day schedule and time is. If you can only invest 5 hours a day in working, well, then tell the team leader you only have 5 hours because of other commitments. But my point is, go to your office manager. They are brilliant. All of our office managers have real estate experience from one perspective or another, and ask them, who should I have a conversation with here in my office, because I think I might benefit from a team. And all teams don't just steal your money. Teams that actually, you'll make more money even with a split if you go on a team because of the efficiency and the knowledge that they're helping you with.
If that team leader can't articulate their
Articulate it,
value, then don't get on that team, because I can articulate the value of what you're paying for.
Yep.
All right, Ryan, appreciate it. As always, we'll
guys.
leave everybody with the quote of the day. Big journeys start with one step and sometimes one key. Appreciate you joining us today. Go out and sell a home.